I want to talk to you about deep level congruence. There's this phenomenon when you step up in some area of your life and you start especially to perform better, the world will start reacting to you differently. And when that happens, that kind of puts you through an entire new experience of self, right? You're going to have to step up and react to the different reactions the world is giving you. And the reason this came to mind isn't from necessarily something in my own game, but something I saw a ton on the LA immersion program I did last week, in which I saw some of the biggest transformations that I've ever seen people go through. And so because people are having these massive paradigm shifts and massive transformations, they're really happy, but then they're put in these very unfamiliar, awkward situations, which actually kind of made them nervous. And some guys responded to it by stepping up, but a lot of guys responded by being actually like kind of scared a little bit and backing down, and a little bit of sort of like fear of success, because success in that case meant like changing their identity or changing their self-perception a little bit. So let me give you some examples. First example is a guy who already had good game, but was like within the spectrum of good game. If this is like total asshole and this is like nice, he was like about here, like on the nice side of having really good game. And he actually got some new clothes. We got him to like step up and like dress like a full douchebag, right? Like to the point where you look at him and be like, who the fuck do you think you are? Kind of thing. Like it was that kind of a thing. And I thought he looked really good, first of all. Like, he looked probably the best I've ever seen him look in a lot of ways, in terms of fashion, in terms of like carrying himself and whatnot. But the funny thing happened. When he walked in and talked to girls, the first 5 or 6 girls he talked to immediately gave him this massive negative reaction. Because the fact of the matter was he looked amazing, he had stepped up, and he had the game and he deserved to wear those clothes. But he was expecting when he'd walk over and talk to the girls, he'd get that same sort of soft landing he's used to. And instead he walked over and got this like very brutal, because he was very polarizing, right? So the girls were gonna love him or hate him. And most of the time they're gonna give him a shit test, but he wasn't used to this kind of shit test. And he was really kind of taken aback by it. It actually took him a day or two to like kind of calibrate to the new phenomenon and to learn to wear the clothes rather than having the clothes wear him. In fact, he was getting such a polarizing reaction. At one point, he was in a lift pulling a girl home. So he'd at that point adapted enough to like get the game with the girls. But because he had this polarizing asshole thing, he actually, like, the Lyft driver got pissed off at him just for being there because he looked like such an asshole. So it was a whole new thing for him to have to deal with. And once you get used to walking through the world, getting those kind of reactions, kind of like fuck you reactions or the oh my god I love you reactions, you sort of learn to calibrate to it. Think of these things, think of stepping up in your game as like you're gaining power, right? You're gaining power. But the thing that happens if you gain power is it becomes harder to control the volume. So think of it as like if you had a speaker, right? And the speaker could go from I don't even know how decibels work, but call it level 0 to level 10. Right? And then all of a sudden you make the speaker so it can go from level 0 to level 50. That's awesome. You have a much more powerful speaker, but now every little turn of the speaker dial, it's a much bigger fluctuation. So it's a lot harder to be calibrated, and you have to really learn to calibrate. And part of that calibration is technical. Part of it is your inner game. I'll give you another couple examples. We had one guy on program who got his first ever day game pull and lay. And also he said it was the hottest girl that he'd ever had sex with. Right, so it was this amazing, he ended up walking 9 miles with the girl all over the place. It was this epic pull. And then he basically got back, they had sex, it was amazing, they talked, had a great connection. And then he did this thing I thought was really weird, which is, he's like, oh, we agreed to let it just be this magical moment and not see each other again, which is fine if that's what he really believed. But then 5 minutes later, after she left and he realized he had no way to contact her, he started crying. Partly for joy of having had the experience, but partly because he just lost this girl. And I think what happened on a certain level, first of all, props to him. Massive props for stepping up and having that amazing experience that most guys will never have in their life. But the other thing I think that happened to him is even though he'd had this experience, because he hadn't had it before, it's so new to him, a certain part of him probably didn't believe he deserved it or even believe it was real. And he sort of wanted to preserve the fantasy and also preserve his own identity and his own self-perception, self-image. Because the funny thing about stepping up is this. If you step up, now what's going to happen is the world's going to hold you to that level and ask you to step up again, right? It's like a really good high school player that goes and plays college basketball. In the high school, he was the king. When he steps up to college, now he's faced with all these different struggles, and there's a chance he's going to flub and embarrass himself. So as much as it's a great opportunity, it's also very scary. And a lot of people respond to that by not even trying, or by trying and then as soon as there's any kind of negativity or whatever, they immediately give up. One more example, which actually shows kind of the good and the bad. And by the way, both of the guys in this example, massive props to them. Massive props because they both did some amazing stuff. But I'll tell you kind of from an inner game perspective, the bad and the good. And then the person that had the inner game issues, I talked to him about it, and we worked through them a bit as well on the program. Basically we're at this really hot club on the last night of program, and this guy who's a really cool, normal, natural guy, but doesn't give himself credit for being as cool as he is, he's talking to probably the hottest girl in the club. Like this girl was like, I was looking over, I was like, God damn, I'm proud of him. God damn, I'm jealous. At the same time, like this girl was hot. And he was doing an amazing job. The girl's like eyes on him, like has that sexual look, that whole like, I can't even describe that. This look at her eyes, the body language, they're like talking this close, they're like dancing is so good, so on. And I'm like, God damn, if I was in this situation, I'd already be inside that girl by now. But then the interesting thing happened. Another student came in and was just like talking, just like being social with them, because I encourage the guys to, talk and be social and whatnot. And of course, because the girl's in a high body temperature state, started to get a good reaction. And then the student who had done such a good job getting the girl so aroused, so turned on, was very willing to just let her talk to this other student because he didn't want to be try hard. He wanted to be Mr. Cool, aloof guy instead of like going after what he had, right? He was enjoying it. The girl was massively hot. But on a certain level, he probably didn't quite feel entitled. And on a certain level, he's like, oh, I feel good about myself for this set. Let me not take a risk and ruin it. And so he took a passive approach, and the girl started getting attracted to the other guy. To the point where the other student was like, hey, I think this girl likes me more than him. What should I do? I was like, no, it's his set. Leave it. Let him do it. He's done an amazing job with it. The guy left. But then about half an hour later, the guy came around again, and the girl actually did like him, and he ended up pulling her. In fact, ended up getting pulled by her. And the second guy, I think, had some of the best inner game I've seen, like, ever, right? At least on program. So his thing was, he just fucking took action. He didn't get ego attached to just about anything. He came in and he's like, look, I have no approach anxiety. I'll do whatever. I just need to learn the techniques. You tell me what to do, I will do it. And that was his inner game. That's what he believed, and that's what he executed on. And he took advantage of everything, asked me tons of questions, got filmed on program, and he was all about, what do I do next? What do I do now? And then as soon as he learned it, he'd go and implement it. Because from the very beginning of program, he didn't have as much like that he was doing right necessarily as some of the more advanced guys on the program. But the thing was, he was willing to try and do anything, and he was willing emotionally to step up. He'd already made the decision to be great, right? He'd made the decision to succeed on a deep core level instead of like having any sort of hesitation about it. And he'd made the decision that he was willing to accept whatever pain that decision meant, right? And that's a big reason why guys don't step up, is because they recognize the future pain. See, on a certain level, it's easy to lose because then the pressure's off. It's easy to quit because then the pressure's off. But every time you step up, you're putting yourself in an even more difficult situation with an even more difficult challenge. So you have to be willing to step up, and you have to understand, know going in that when you step up, the world will shit test you. The world will push back. And if you can handle that pushback, you're going to really skyrocket to that next level. And your epiphany will not be that first little burst of success, but there'll be this whole other level that goes orders of magnitude beyond. However, if you're not prepared for it, it's very easy to get knocked back into your comfort zone and sort of give up. And one of the biggest areas this happens is when guys first learn pickup. You start learning pickup, you start going out, and guys kind of push against you. Maybe your friends are like, oh, why are you being weird? Why don't you do this pickup stuff? It's supposed to just happen. Or why, like, you change the way you dress to be more fashionable. Like, why are you being so try-hard? Can't you just be normal? Can't you just relax? Whatever comes up, you're gonna get pushed back from the world. So when you want to step up and succeed, two things. Number one, truly determine what your goal is, and you better buy into that goal. You better buy in, because there will be obstacles along the way. So be ready for them. That's part two, is be ready. Understand when you step up, the world is gonna step back, and there will be a moment when you're gonna have to like look at who you are, and you have to say, you know what? I'm done being the soft version of me. I'm done being the little boy version. I'm done being the weak version of me. I'm gonna step up, and whatever the world throws at me, fuck it. I'm gonna take it full on in the face, and I'm gonna fucking deal with it. And when you get to that level where you're just willing to step up and take the pain, that's when you're gonna make not just that first epiphany, but that second level of epiphany. And then you're gonna cement those behaviors and make them a part of who you are.